So now we're finally out of the Sonic miniseries that was a precursor to the actual comic. Now, finally, we get to start issue 1, which was an enjoyable read, even if it has forced jokes and plot holes, or at least times where I thought, oh, that's weird. I noticed that it definitely has more annoying forced jokes than the previous miniseries, which were surprisingly bare in annoying forced jokes. The plot summary is this. The very first thing you see is the sight of Eggman strangling Sonic. Granted, it's just a piñata that resembles him, but still! His tongue's green and everything. This is a really morbid image for a part of the comic where it's actually pretty lighthearted. Eggman gets furious at a robot bringing him a potted plant and beats him up for it. Seriously, what is his problem with plants? Did he get poisoned by something nature-related as a kid? Did he go on a particularly bad camping trip? They never actually bothered to explain why he hates nature to a cartoonishly strawman degree. It stretches suspension of disbelief, to be honest. Like, seriously, nobody is that bad. Anyways, the plant wraps around the inexplicably talking crab meat robot, and the beaten up SWAT bot reveals to Eggman that the plant is actually a mechanical plant with a stupid name. Kaidzu, what is that? Kudzu? Oh, it's Crudzu. I misread the A as an R at first. Stupid font. I think the font for the robot text is actually more square-like. You can really tell with the C's. It makes it a little harder to read, which is obviously a terrible thing. Was it making the text boxes differently shaped enough? But back to what I was going to say. I'm surprised this disguised attack robot isn't something Eggman himself built or came up with. How is it that he's the boss and mastermind of everything, and yet this is news to him? Does he have robots that are allowed to come up with new ideas and machines for him? Guess so. I mean, it'd make it more convenient. It's just kind of weird. You never see Eggman being given his evil invention of the week by someone else in the games. Already that's more creative. And again, the font sucks here. I misread deserves how he digs a trench, and I had to really quickly reread it a few times to realize it was actually saying observe and not deserve. So basically, Eggman decides to take credit for the idea while throwing the SWAT bot in the garbage disposal or whatever, and threatening the Burrow bot into keeping it a secret. First of all, notice this earlier. Does Eggman have super strength or something? Are his hands and feet actually made of metal? I mean, it would explain the metal MILF insult earlier. Because otherwise, I don't see how he can beat up a SWAT bot so effortlessly, knocking it into the metal floor and everything. I guess he does then, and that's supposed to make him look threatening. But it doesn't look like it. And two, he's blatantly wasting minions here. But I guess it's justified in this case since he probably has a factory with an automated process that can produce millions of SWAT bots effortlessly. So he doesn't really lose anything from destroying SWAT bots, especially since his robots are programmed to be loyal to him anyways. Otherwise, I'd call this minion wasting as an absolutely idiotic move from any villain. Why does he waste time roboticizing people when he has so many other robots anyways? For the evils, I'm guessing. He's not really a well thought out character, he just does evil things for the evils. Like, you have Eggman in the games not roboticizing people, and the only thing that it loses is it's slightly less dark and edgy. So it's also less getting invested. But anyways. Hey, he's right! Why is she discussing military strategy with someone other than the military leader? Sonic's not exactly going to have some expert advice. I'm guessing it's because she's supposed to have a crush on him for some reason as implied in later issues, and because she just doesn't like talking with Antoine very much. This is also a pretty natural way to introduce to the fans the name of this character, with him mentioning his name in his thought bubble as an expression of his egoism. Except this was actually a name that was told to you in the miniseries earlier. But, you know, there are probably some people who would have started out the comic with this comic. It doesn't make any sense that he's sighing in his thoughts, or that someone who's not a native English speaker is thinking in English. But it's all there for the purpose of communicating to the reader. What does Sally mean by double matted? Seriously, I have no idea what double matted means. I've never heard that before. And since even I've never heard that before, an adult for that matter, it doesn't really make sense that would be in a kid's comic. I don't really like Sally's design here. Black hair doesn't really suit her. She looks better aesthetically with red hair and clothes. And I hate how Sonic's eyelid isn't the same shade of blue as the rest of his fur. How hard was it to not make that mistake? It doesn't look too well drawn in general, honestly. The comic at this point has kind of ugly art to it, but I don't really care about looks. It has its own charm to it, so I won't harp on it too much. In fact, don't expect me to talk about the way the comic looks at all, unless it's vitally important. I'm so jealous. You can't just have the characters say how they feel. That makes me feel angry. Why is he suddenly talking out loud anyways? And again, I mentioned this the last time I looked at this comic, but I hate the Ant short form of Antoine. And any short form that isn't Twan for that matter. But Ant especially, it's like they're calling him a bug. And that doesn't make sense since he bugs them, but I doubt that was the intent. Twan just sounds better. More, I don't know, friendly. At least Sally has the good sense of finally think to ask Antoine for his advice on the matter. I didn't think she ever would. It feels insulting to my intelligence that I'm expected to believe that he just doesn't hear his friends loudly calling his name. Does thinking make you go deaf or something? And again, thinking out loud. The Burrowbot's thought responds to what Antoine's saying because he decided to say his thoughts out loud. Basically, Antoine leaves the hideout all alone because he wants to get a flower to make Sally like him more. Well, this doesn't do a good job showing that he's not as competent as you'd expect the military leader of freedom fighters to be, though. You'd think that the lack of muscles in young age would make that obvious enough. But still, this was a pretty stupid move. Naturally, Antoine screams for help, and Sonic wants to see what's going on. The comic book's still called Sonic the Hedgehog, isn't it? I cringe a little at that line. This is the first instance of a forced joke in the comic series in general. The miniseries might not really count to this point. It's breaking the fourth wall for the sake of breaking the fourth wall. Why bother trying to get you immersed in the story then? Especially since they already have a joke anyways with the amusing image of Sally being pulled by Sonic out of the base. I'm willing to believe that it's not going to hurt her being pulled at that speed because, I mean, it's a cartoon, I guess, and she's a Mobian, so maybe she's safer. Okay, it does make sense that Sonic would have a hard time speaking in this instance. Entwined and Antoine both having Twa in it would be a bit hard to say really close together in a panic, but this joke is kind of out of place considering something dangerous is happening. All it does is water down the tension of the scene. Antoine's in a dangerous situation here, and yet they still think it's the right place for a joke. It's like Chip in Sonic Unleashed, taking the tension and watering it down. I guess that he's not supposed to be a character you're meant to really care about, so maybe that was the point. But still, I'm surprised Antoine is telling them to go on without him here. This is probably meant to establish that even though he's the team coward, he still cares about his friends, even if they treat him like crap. So he's not the type to tell them to risk their lives just to save him, because even though he's scared for his life, the thought of his friends also being in danger still scares him more. It's a good establishing character moment for him, showing that he's not a dirty coward, just a coward. Not even that necessarily, honestly, he's just reacting like any normal person would in dangerous situations. In fact, that's kind of the problem I have with calling Antoine a coward in general. He's only a coward compared to the rest of the main characters, when really he's the only one reacting realistically like any normal human being would. While the other characters are just supernaturally brave. Not here though. Sonic and Sally are clearly pretty scared. At first I thought it was out of character for Sonic saying this line, since while he is egotistical enough to refer to himself in third person here, okay, I guess he really is really prideful about his hero reputation. But it just sounds way too corny for someone who's supposed to be cool, like more like something Superman would say. It's not really an attitude thing, it's more like something straight out of the Care Bears. I never leave a friend behind. But the rest of his lines kind of make up for it, since he admits, characteristically, that just like I was expecting, he doesn't consider Antoine to be his friend. And I like how Antoine reacts realistically to this instead of not saying anything to it at all, being annoyed by it. Though he's so panicked right now that it would make sense if he didn't say anything. Sonic uses his spin dash to free Antoine of the plant's grip, and carries him into the base in a hurry since the other plant robots are still attacking them. So are the plant robots made of plant material on the outside? Are they like plant cyborgs or something? This is a really cool concept that they're using right off the bat. I don't like Sonic saying the Ant-Man though. It sounds like an awkward forced attempt at a reference to an obscure superhero. Not like something Sonic would actually say, more like a reference by the writers. And I like how Sally not only slaps that plant away, being proactive as a female character, they'll get used to that. She also warns him that he has to get inside quick, or else the plants will actually follow them into the base. It's another good establishing character moment, which hurt with her being the smart, responsible leader character. Another forced joke, woohoo. Why would Rotor ever think this? He's clearly tied up in the vine to the point of being unable to use his arms. Why would he ever do this to himself on purpose? I guess it's kind of worth a chuckle. Except for the fact that Rotor clearly looks worried and serious here. So it's like he's not trying to make a joke, he actually legitimately thought that Antoine was using this as a fashion statement. And he's supposed to be the genius of the group? Great first line there. If you're going to put jokes in the story, have them make sense. Because otherwise it's just an intrusive waste of time. I actually did giggle at this point though. He actually pulls out a chainsaw to cut the vines free. Unfortunately, the conclusion of the joke goes right back to making no sense. Why would he choose now to trim that table? Somehow wanting to do that in the first place for some reason. And risk hurting Antoine in the process and scare him. That was dickish of him to do. I swear, up to this point I don't really see a reason to like Rotor. He's just... he justifies his position by being a genius, inventor, but he's just a comedy character who isn't funny. At least Sally feels sorry for him, so she's in character here instead of being a complete jerk. I think it's stupid that they draw X's over his eyes and have his tongue sticking out for when he faints though. That's not how people look when they faint. I know it's a cartoon art style, but still it always completely takes me out of it. Every time I see it. Speaking of taking me out of it, Sonic talks directly to the audience in another completely unnecessary bit of fourth wall breaking. So after they somehow take the vines off of Antoine wakes up and they force him to walk around, even though he's still woozy. Why is he outright saying that he feels dizzy, weak, and confused? Doesn't he want to avoid looking weak in front of his friends at all costs? He's trying to build a reputation as a badass military leader, remember? Not to mention, this is another instance of this makes me feel angry. And it's also awkwardly written, having him saying not only, I feel dizzy, but also I feel weak and confused after that. Why does Sally look annoyed at him while she's saying his name and concern? I guess she's looking annoyed at Sonic at the same time she's saying that, for his being a complete heartless dick. Good, he's back to normal. Showing a complete lack of sympathy there. It's like he doesn't want to feel sorry for him at all. Antoine does deserve it, but still. Why is Tails excited over this? Why would he care about seeing a bucket of plants? He's not fascinated by plant science or anything. In fact, at this point in the series, he's not supposed to be a genius at all. And he's definitely not one here, considering he's still going through with watering the plant with a smile, even after his friends screaming at him not to do it. Why are they just assuming that the plant robot isn't going to short circuit from not being waterproof? Just because it looks like a plant doesn't mean it's going to respond well to water. I get that this is supposed to show that Tails cares about nature, and so he wants to water plants just from seeing them. But because it's a comic, it makes him look like a moron, because you can't see if he started watering them before he was warned not to, or if he acted deaf to the warnings. So the plant robots with a stupid name have taken over the Great Forest. How is a giant telescope like that only 25 cents? Eggman gloats about how the Freedom Fighters are supposedly doomed to perish either way, either from the plant robots or the Buzz Bombers he's sending out for them. Only to have an out-of-character moment for the sake of a joke, saying his evilness even scares himself. This is strange considering it's his dark and edgy, sad AM design. And the comic as a whole is taking it pretty seriously for a character who only exists because the writers need a villain. So it looks like I was right about the plants not being waterproof, but that just makes the freedom fighters look even more stupid for having not assumed that was the case to begin with, like anyone else would do. Tails makes a pun here based off his remarking on plant cuttings earlier, but at least it's not out of place or anything here because he's saying it's technology on the cutting edge, which is perfectly suited to the context of the scene. It is advanced technology. The only real problem is that the writers felt the need to put the word cutting in bold, because they were so smugly proud of their own joke that they really didn't want you to miss it. Seriously, it's Pontac and Graph years before they were relevant. Why the hell was the plant robot still able to talk and even deliriously insult them after it was short-circuited and just thus rendered helpless? Sally shows that she's the wise and level-headed one again by saying that rather than Sonic needing to dream up an action-packed plan involving a huge watering hose, the rain will take care of the plant robots for them. But I'm the star, I have to save the day. I love that line from Sonic, by the way. Honestly, Sonic should be arrogant. That's his character. And it seems like this comic is doing it right. It does strike me as extremely stupid to make plant robots a short circuit in the water, considering the inevitability of that happening though. Especially since I have a hard time believing that anything can't be made waterproof now. Because even in the present day, in real life, we literally have methods of making water harmlessly slide off anything without damaging it. This is an anticlimactic end to the episode. Well, episode for lack of a better word. Just having the main threat be defeated by rain without the hero needing to get his hands dirty is kind of disappointing, but it does make sense. It's smart. And the comic ends with Eggman throwing the robot who followed his orders into the trash compactor. That's a clever callback to the beginning of the issue. The next episode starts with a forced joke where Tails thinks he's being told to call Sonic Tails when the mere presence of the comma makes it obvious that this isn't the case. I guess Tails is supposed to be naive. They're trying to give him some sort of personality to justify him being here without a purpose yet, and they decide to make him the bumbling idiot as a result. Since when does Tails have a complete lack of social skills? Sonic uses geek as an insult? That's something I'd expect more from an elementary school bully. Or rather, TV's softened up depiction of what bullies are like. I mean, Sonic is kinda like a jock. He likes running and stuff. But it still seems weird having him say that, especially since Antoine doesn't exactly qualify as a geek. He's not exactly running around wearing glasses and a bow tie reading superhero comics. It's another joke that kind of fell flat. Sally says she needs Sonic to fold up the map, right? And Sonic, characteristically, shows exasperation in having to help with something so mundane. He also references a 90s cartoon show. So I guess that show is well known on Mobius too. I've never watched it. Rotor tells Sonic that through the power of technological plot convenience, Rotor has found out where Eggman's going to make a speech. It's Casino Night Zone! And in a blatantly unnecessary fourth wall breaking joke, Sonic starts shilling the game that the zone was gotten from, by telling the audience to play one of the most boring levels of Sonic 2 as a whole. Do they really think that the audience is this stupid? It should go without saying that you don't need to play Sonic 2 at all to get Sonic to Casino Night Zone in this comic. At least it does say, or you can just turn the page. But, like, why is it being called scary anyways? It's like the least scary zone ever. The level only has a few badniks and no bottomless pits. It's just got slow-moving elevators, and you navigating around slow-moving blocks. It's also weird that they're calling it a zone, considering that later in the comic they would establish that zones refer to entire universes, not tiny subsections of one planet. Maybe they had two meanings, I don't know. It makes sense that Sonic knows what Garçon means, since he's friends with Antoine, but it's still really inexplicable of him to say it. Sonic being let in by a SWAT bot being given the idiot ball is a really stupid plot point. It feels like it's just there for the sake of convenience, when Sonic could have easily just done something action-oriented for an action hero series, which is spin dash straight through it, instead of comedy winning over action for the sake of a joke. I mean, why does the SWAT bot even think that the main hero of the world, who all the robots should know about, would pay him anything? Why would he expect him to have money at all? He's hiding from a tyrant in a desolate dystopia. At least I'm finally treating the robot like his enemy again helps to bring things back to normal, after the robot inexplicably forgot who he was. Sonic being knocked out and captured so damn easily just makes him look like a complete moron for deciding to go to Eggman's speech in the first place. And the rest of the Freedom Fighters had no reason to want him to do that either. What could they possibly have had to gain in telling Sonic to go to Eggman's big speech if they didn't want to assassinate him? Were they expecting a cure for roboticization there? So the robot brings Sonic to Eggman trapped in a bubble, and somehow Eggman takes being called obese as a compliment. I guess he's supposed to just be that arrogant? And now we get another demonstration of how Eggman is a sadist, which is a good villain moment for him, as he basically tortures Sonic in a pinball machine. He gets smacked into a wall and sent all over the place, and even electrocuted. The middle one, I don't really see why that'd be a problem for Sonic, since he shouldn't be able to get motion sickness at all. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to handle super speed and go into a spin dash without getting dizzy. But the rest of it makes perfect sense. I'm guessing he's just guessing blindly about it being 2000 volts, because he shouldn't know the exact voltage so easily, and there's no way he'd be able to survive that many of them, even if he is a Mobian. So the robot tells Eggman that someone won 50 cents at the casino, calling him fat again since apparently robots are programmed to think that's a compliment. So someone won money at Eggman's casino. Why would someone ever bother going to a casino run by Eggman? That's pretty dumb. It should be obvious that he's not going to let anyone win money. So, and logically, his casino shouldn't be programmed to give out any money at all then. So Sonic is given a huge lucky break here for the sake of convenience. Not to mention, who would even go to the casino, would a roboticized person be the one going to the casino? Would a SWAT bot go to the casino? Who actually went to the casino in the first place? I really like how they were smart enough to think that it's too small of a space for Sonic to curl up into a ball for a spin dash. Why it's called a Sonic spin, I have no idea. And I like how he's forced to use cleverness and ingenuity to escape, cutting through the glass with his sharp spines. I'm also impressed that Sonic actually knows what the word alliteration means, or even how to pronounce it. He always struck me as more of a street smart kind of guy, so he probably learned that word from Boomer. Or Rotor. Boomer is his prototype name right now. And it makes sense that Eggman's distracted by just mentioning food, considering the size. And the fact that they don't overuse this type of joke is very impressive. They could have easily turned him into Chip. So, I'm confused. Exactly what happened here? Sonic got his sharp spines to stick out of the glass bubble and used that to tear apart the pinball machine, but I'm still not sure how the bubble he was in just magically disappeared. And the bomb that Sonic found off-screen to blow up Casino Night Zone, which looks something like it did in the games, by the way, comes completely out of nowhere. But it does make for a somewhat satisfying-looking conclusion. So, was that it? I'm really glad they included something from the games into the comic in a really original way, but it's so unlike the level in the game, being an actual casino with a pinball torture machine in it, that it's clear that they only named it Casino Night Zone for the sake of a reference. I do like how they incorporated a casino into the comics at all, though. And since there's only one casino in the Sonic series at that point in time, what else could they have called it? People would have thought it was a boring, bland missed opportunity if they didn't call it Casino Night Zone. So the episode ends with another clever callback to the start, by Sonic being asked to open a child-proof cap for Antoine. I'm surprised it's Antoine and not Tails who's struggling with it. That's actually a lot better. Tails is still being treated like a stupid, naive kid here. But this time it's very justified. Rotor really did sound like he wanted to gamble there. It just doesn't make any sense that a kid would have the responsibility to arbitrarily say no to gambling just because he's young. As opposed to, it being because gambling is a stupid way to lose money. And the issue ender has Rotor pointlessly giving out awards to his friends. Although it does work to emphasize the close friendship between all of them that they joke around like that. Like he's giving out awards to show that he appreciates them. So that's sweet, I guess. You'll notice that I said that there's a lot of things that impressed me about this issue. So, even though I'm going to nitpick and point out a lot of flaws in these comics, I'm also going to point out all the good things too, no matter how minor they may be.